Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. Today was an inside day. I really do have to say that. I kind of felt the air on the back of my neck, that it was like last chance or something to tidy things up in my mind. And I went kind of deep. And actually, in going deep, I happened on to topics and characters in history that I'd never heard of before, that I'd never touched base and understanding or even hearing these names before in history, mythology, um, uh, Greek gods, just different, odd little topics coming across my path today. And I think it was a little bit just entertaining myself in all actuality. Tomorrow, I had planned on going out and spending the day on a nice long walk. It's supposed to be absolutely beautiful tomorrow. So today, I just kind of relaxed, I think. I just spent that time with myself. And like I said, just delved into interesting little topics in that little bit of what in my mind I'm saying is tidy up. But in actuality, like I said, I was probably just entertaining myself. And oh my goodness, I ate today. I ate lots today. I ate lots today. It seemed like every hour I was getting up to have something to eat. That does happen to me, in working on myself and in actuality in working in those coping mechanisms that I've had my entire life. I have gotten rid of so many. But this relationship that I have with food is a curious one. It really is a curious one. I'm not appreciative of it in any way. There are moments and little spans of time in my life where I don't pay attention to it, and my whole body regulates perfectly in that. And it's not that I'm not eating, it's just in that on the hour I've got to eat. I've always had food as a reward system for myself. But I'm not going to beat myself up in that because, right, what I have accomplished in the past, I don't know, 10 years or so in my life, maybe 20 years, because coping mechanisms have always been top of mind and in the surface of my life. And for the most part, it has been a bit of a tug of war in my life in that. And I'm kind of grateful that I had the insights and the want to do better by myself, that not even being woke up to some of these ideas, I wanted to do better by myself. I gave myself that little running jump, right? That little head start in getting some of those. I'm not going to say they were small coping mechanisms because they caused me a lot of grief, a lot of grief. And you guys know a few of them, like the gambling, the payday loans, which I only rehashed in my memory. And this past week, I had totally forgotten about that one. And that one cost me so much stress in my life because I was truly juggling like three or four payday loans at the same time, taking loans against a payroll, one payroll, but I was taking three or four loans out on that one payroll. And then when payday would come along, I would pay one off, run to the next payday loan, get another payday loan, then run to the next one, pay that one off. And by the time I got them paid off, I had no money in my pocket. But the next payroll, right, I'd have to dish out like 4 times, maybe 5 times sometimes, the amount of money that I was actually bringing in. I did that for years, you guys. I did that for years. I overcame that one. It was a hard one. I made it part of my goals. And you guys know I make goal lists for the year, every year. And when I know that I have big chunks of money coming in, I always designate that money to one important thing on that goal list. And I remember that one year that I dedicated, what was it, an income tax return? Might have been an income tax return. And I paid all those payday loans off and I said, never again. And the first time I tried, I did it. I never went back to those payday loans. It took me a few years after that to finally pull myself away from the gambling, but I managed to do that too. I managed to quit smoking. I managed to stop crunching ice and chewing on cough drops. Oh my goodness, that just totally destroyed my teeth and also cost me a lot of money in the process of fixing those teeth. But each one of those things that I broke away from, they offered up something amazing. They offered up some kind of gift. In the payday loans, it gave me an opportunity to learn to pay my bills on time. It made it so that I had money in the pocket for those things that I truly did love. Like I loved having a car, right? I loved having a car. I loved going camping and driving out in the countryside and not having those payday loans over my head and stressing me out. Oh my goodness. Let's not even go there, but let's go there, right? The stress was so unbearable. And in that stress, we delve in deeper into our coping mechanisms. And if we eliminating coping mechanisms, we have to bring on more coping mechanisms to um, replace the ones that we've given up. I believe that my YouTube channel was one of those amazing, healthy, right? A lot of people might not think it's healthy because it sure kept me busy. It sure kept me on my toes, but it offered up so many opportunities for me to get my life back on track. And that is a truth, right? Lots of people, they go on those diets on New Year's Eve, but if you don't bring on a new coping mechanism, right, like exercise, which is not considered a healthy addiction, we know that even exercise can become compulsive and habitual, right? The bodybuilders who do that, the people who are constantly on and off of diets, right? That runs in my family. Even I ran in that stream for the longest time, right? And, I guess probably a lot of that is becoming more mature, that, that sexuality, right? That looking beautiful and having that hourglass figure is not something that I compulse about like I used to as a teenager and as a young adult, right? But it is true, in order to truly give up those things that are not good for you, you have to bring on another addiction. And I'm grateful for my healthy addictions, like my YouTube channel, right? And it's not that I totally rely on that, but it makes me wonder, if I didn't have this, what would I be doing with my life? Right? This is not only my give back, right? But this is my give to me too, because it offers up the opportunity for me to keep going, to keep moving forward. And I don't even have to know anymore what I'm moving towards, because it's always revealing itself to me. It's always revealing it to me. And it's a gift. It's like the most amazing gift that I could have ever given myself. And I attribute a lot of the work that I've done. Like, right? I didn't want my money to go into the gambling machines and to playing poker and stuff anymore, because I wanted that money to go into my brand for computers and laptops and cameras and camera gear, right? And also in my time, I wanted to be at the computer. I wanted to be in the lessons. I wanted to be in the conversations. And I wanted to know the people out there who are delving in, just not as YouTube creators, but as people who work in mindset and mindfulness, right? People who are actually into motivation and inspiration and bettering their lives, right? And so grateful for that. Hello, Tammy. I am happy for you too, Cindy. Your great achievements and winning against those bad addictions. I know it's surely not easy at all, right? It would have been best if I didn't need to have coping mechanisms. But I think the lessons in our life sometimes are so difficult, they're so scary, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but I believe that I use those coping mechanisms to keep me sane, to keep me moving forward, to keep me feeling like I had something to contribute, to make it in the moment that I was having fun, because, these things are enjoyable. We do them because they're enjoyable. We do them because they calm our systems down. In the moment, they saved my life. I believe that they saved my life. But in the end, in after that moment is over, of that adrenaline and that dopamine rush, then the consequences kick in. And it's the consequences that do so much damage and make us want to give up. I think they're set in place for exactly, right? It's our test. It's our test to see if we can overcome ourselves, right? Overcome ourselves. Hello, Eugene. I'm doing good tonight. I hope your night is going good, and I thank you for the thumbs up. It's much appreciated, right? But I don't know what brought me into that. Oh, because I ate so much today. But in saying that, my coping with food has been the one thing that I have never been able to conquer, to overcome. And I'm not really going to say that because, I was once a very, very big girl. I was over 300 pounds at one time. And I did bring my weight down to a manageable weight, a weight that I am comfortable in. And that opened up gifts for me too, because, I met my husband, I started dating, I just opened up my life to so many things like beautiful clothes, right? And it really contributed to me seeing another part of the world that I had never experienced. And sometimes we don't really know what we're missing. We really don't. We have an imagination, we can imagine, but because we beat ourselves up and saying, that's not for you, right? That you don't have what it takes, that this word acceptance, right, becomes very prevalent in our lives. And acceptance is good. That idea, that change what you can change, but accept what you can't change. But if you've never had an experience in that aspect of possibilities, then it's easy to accept that that's not for you. That's not for me. And sometimes we need that little bit of a wake up call, and I got that wake up call. My mother, or my grandmother, and my father, they used to say to me all the time, Cindy, it's what's in the inside that counts, not what's on the outside. Don't worry about it. It's what's in the inside that counts. And then when I lost all that weight and I had guys chasing after me and I was able to get into beautiful clothes and I started dating and then I met my husband, right? I got smacked in the face with that quote that my grandmother and my father used to say to me all the time. I know they said it to me to make me feel better about the life that I had in the moment, right? I'm not quite sure if they believed it themselves because, when I saw the other side of the fence, when I experienced that life that I never thought that I would have an opportunity to experience. Because, like I said, I just accepted it, that it wasn't going to be a life for me, right? And in happy chance, it happened for me. And in that, it gave me that recognition, right? It, like I said, it smacked me upside the head and I knew, right? The outside does count because the outside is what others perceive, right? Humans are very judging, and you can hear it, Tammy. We're going to send a little bit of good cheer out to the fire truck. Yes, it's a fire truck, and we're going to send them to their destination. They're going to knock on that door. Someone's going to answer that door and say, "Oh my goodness, everything's good now." Right? We were scared for the moment, but everything's good now. And they can just turn around and go right back to the station. If you guys don't know, I live behind a fire station. So almost every single night when I do my live shows, Tammy? Every single night when I do my live shows, we have to take a little 30-second break to send out some good cheer. But yeah, I really got to see that what's on the outside does count because that's where the judgment comes from. You know, as a kid and a teenager and as a young adult, that saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That was just a motivational quote. Of course, right? Names hurt me. the terrible things that kids can say, that even as a teenager and a young adult, as a mature adult, the mean things that people can say. And it wasn't because I was overly sensitive, right? It wasn't because I was overly sensitive. It was just like I wouldn't do that to other people, right? What makes people think that, it's okay to say those things to me? It didn't change the way I presented myself. I still, because I put myself, even back then, I put myself in other people's shoes and I knew it was an unkindness, right? I was actually that kid who would stick up for others, right? I didn't always stick up for myself because I was taught at home to turn the other cheek, but I would stick up for others when I felt like people were out of line or being mean or being bullyish, right? Towards other people. And in truth, I made comrades in that. I made friends and I built up respect in that. And I didn't do it as a bully back, right? Because I still had in my mind to turn the other cheek because I always felt like I was this close to getting in trouble. If my mother or my father would hear that I had gotten in a fight, my mother pulled out that pink dress that was full of tulle and it wasn't even pink anymore. It was something from the 1940s that she picked up out of the secondhand store, but it was so old it had turned gray. It was no longer pink. And my mother would put me in this dress, and I would have to wear this dress to school as punishment. And right, half the time it didn't fit, it was ripped, it was stinky, it was just a horrible dress. And so, I come to learn, right? Sometimes, right? You have to take the lessons in that. And that was a lesson that I didn't appreciate. So I was cautious when I stuck up for other people. But I couldn't turn my cheek on that. I would always stop whatever was going on, threaten to talk to somebody about it, and also make sure that that person who was doing the unkindness or the bullying, that they knew that somebody knew what they were doing, that they weren't going to get away with it. Because I truly believe, right? And I still believe that if you turn the other cheek on somebody who's doing an unkindness, right? Pretend you don't see, right? That you're just as guilty. And not only that, you're giving that person who was doing that unkindness permission at the very least to go off and do that to somebody else. And in my good conscience, I just couldn't do it. Even if I did have to wear that ugly 1940s dress with all that gray tulle, right? It was supposed to be pink and pretty, but it wasn't pink and pretty. It was something out of that movie with Betty Davis. What was it called? Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte. Do you remember that movie? I always compared that dress. Like I could see that dress in my mind right now. And yeah, my mother was very creative in her punishments. I give her that, right? But I would have to say it didn't do me very much good. It caused more damage to me in the trauma of having to wear that dress than it was in putting me in that dress. But for the most part, it stopped me from getting myself in confrontations with other people. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Right? Everybody in here giving out the the good cheer for the fire trucks. I think that's pretty cool, right? That doubles up the opportunity that it really does turn into a false alarm. And I know you got some serious good mojo going on about you, Tammy. So, yeah, that little bit of backup on me on that good cheer when those fire trucks go by, super appreciated. Okay, I understand, Cindy. I've been through some hard times and bad things that happened to me through the years. I am grateful that I am a survivor and an overcomer too. Right? Like it's so amazing. It's sad that we're put in that state where we're put in that position because we live in a beautiful world, right? But sometimes the people in the world are not as beautiful as the world itself is. But those survivors, Tammy, right, are the examples to others that it can be done. Because lots of people out there, they don't survive their experiences or they escape them in their coping mechanisms. And you know, just as much as my mother was creative in finding that gray tool dress for me to stop me from getting into fights, people are creative in the way that they want to zone out, right? My poison was the gambling, right? So intellectually I was there, but emotionally and mentally I was not, right? And I'm not even sure I could say physically I was there because my marriage suffered in that because my husband was off with his friends and I was off with my friend, which really wasn't even a human being. It wasn't even a friend at all. It was just a coping mechanism in the end, right? I wish my husband was around at the very least to see that I actually overcame that detrimental part of my life. I think he would have been super proud of me for that. I think my husband, I think all the men in my life would have been super proud of where I'm at right now. They were always more aware and sensitive than I was. Um, right? I have no idea how I lucked out so well in some of these relationships that I had, but I've had some pretty beautiful relationships, whether they were platonic, whether they were friendship, whether they were romantic, right? I was in need of that company in the moment and being the person that I was, right? I gave as much as I received in those relationships. And I'm grateful that at least I had that insight to do that. And not only that, each one of those relationships ended with love, with caring, right? And not a lot of people could say that because a lot of people, they can't get rid of the love out of their systems. So what do? They bring up the betrayal and they bring up the meanness and the coldness and the revenge and the yucky stuff to make it so that these are my memories, these relationships that I had in my life. They're my memories. I don't want to be 80 years old and rocking in my rocking chair and thinking mean things and being bitter and resentful and not have good stories to tell about these beautiful people that I had in my life, right? And yeah, so I'm really grateful, and I'm sure each one of those relationships felt the exact same way about me. It was important for me to end those relationships well. And lots of times, relationships just end themselves, right? We just slowly um, pull ourselves away from that without even knowing what's going on until it does just become a happy memory. And we actually even have to look back and say, well, how or why did we not stay connected? In the end, everything works out the way that it's supposed to work out. But lots of times, as humans, why we want to make people pay, right? And I never even took my husband's pension, and he even had an amazing military pension going on. Like I just wanted us both to have very good memories of that amazing span of how long we were together. I think we were together 9 years, right? And I want us to be able to be sitting in our rocking chairs, both of us. I'll be sitting in the rocking chair a lot sooner than he was because he was 10 years younger than I was, but to sit in our rocking chairs and think back on our lives and think about the happy times, to think about the good times and not have regret, or you can't help sometimes about the what ifs, right? But that's the imagination, that's the creativity in that. And I would much rather be creative in thinking about the what ifs than being creative in how to make somebody pay, right? And it takes two to tango too in relationships. So we got to remember that each one of us plays a role in any relationship that succeeds or fails. And that's the truth. I was SA. What's SA? When oh, Tammy, really? Okay, I know what that is. Really? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that. Um when I was 16 years old at my first food restaurant job at a famous fast food place. When my mother found out and I told her, she silenced me and told me it was a disgrace to the family. Oh my goodness, Tammy, I'm so sorry. And you probably, right, kept your mouth shut in that. That's a terrible thing, right? And that's a mistake on your mom's part. I don't think it was part of the brutality in that, that she meant to hurt you that way and be inconsiderate that way. But, sometimes in our own fears and in our own minds, we work these stories up to mean something else. And I'm really sorry to hear that happened in your life. Uh, it's funny, these things have been going on since the beginning of time, and you don't hear about it, right? As much as it's actually going on. And it's almost like an expectation now that when these things happen, that we don't like, it's so common that we don't say anything about it. And I hope you were able to resolve that. I hope you had some friends in your life that you were able to talk these things over. If you ever want to talk to me, Tammy, like, we can do a Zoom call, right, and do face to face. And right, I work in dynamic relationships, and you know, it's in private relationships in my life, but we're not untouched in my family by these experiences. I've have talked about it, and you've been in my content for the longest time and almost watched almost everything that I've produced so far, that you probably sat in on some of those experiences in those conversations. And yeah, if you ever want to talk, Tammy, you just shoot me a message and I'll send you an email, a link, and we can have a little chit chat. Oh, you have a great night, Eugene. Thank you so much. I'm going to game live stream on YouTube now. Oh, I didn't even know you liked the video games, Eugene. Yeah. I don't hear too much about the gamers anymore. I don't know. Sometimes if you're not in that scene, if you're not in the topics and they're not coming across your path, you can have a tendency to forget that these gamers are out there. And I still think they're probably a big part of the population out there, right? I think gaming is still pretty popular. Yes, it did get reported and documented, and the guy got fired. I left that job and went somewhere else to work. He threatened to kill me if he ever saw me on the street. Oh my goodness, and you had that in your life too? Oh, YouTube games. Oh, I get it, Eugene. I get it. Wow. Right? You have had some experiences in your life, 100%, Tammy. And it's amazing that you were able to overcome, right? And I'm sure a lot of that is still in here. It's still in here. But I hope you find healthy ways to disperse that out of your system. Like I said, this stuff can get in you and it can poison you, right? You could have turned into a bitter, uncaring person. And anybody who hangs out with us here knows that's far from it when it concerns you. But yeah, Tammy, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that because, it is in these experiences that other people get to realize, right, that they're not the only person, that these terrible things, right, happen to a lot of people. And even if it's not the exact same experience, that they're having, it's still a terrible, traumatic experience. And then when they experience you and your beautiful nature, right, that makes you the evidence, that makes you the example that it could be overcome, right? And I have to say thank you for that, right? It is being brave and having that courage, but also at the same time learning to disperse that out of your system so it doesn't poison your entire life. Yeah, that's something for sure. Okay, you guys, we're going to pull a card. Maybe it's pertinent to the conversation. Maybe it's not. I was in such a flow. I don't even know what I was talking about already. But I will come in to my live after we've shut it down and I will take the lesson for myself. But for sure, Tammy, if you ever want to chit chat with me, just let me know and we can set up a time and yeah, grab a cup of coffee and we can have a chit chat together, right? That's the way I like to do this work is just in conversations, right? In being good listeners, being a good partner in the resolutions because it is in the talking and in the crying and not just the time, right? Because if it was your first job, it was when you were a teenager at the very least. So there has been a great amount of time span in between when it happened and at this point now. So there's some of that healing has already been done. hopefully your church, your friends, right? Yes, but I overcame it all as an adult. I was able to address it and help others. I had a hard time at first. Not until I became an adult could I address it, and I was able to help others too. Beautiful, Tammy. That's absolutely, I think that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. It compounds that idea, right? That in our experiences, if we don't, right, let it come out, if we don't have these conversations, if we don't shut the bullies down, the abusers down, right, that we are giving them permission to go off and do that to somebody else. And I hope, right, the experience that I was going to say gentleman, but he was no gentleman in any way. But in the experience he had in the aftermath, I hope he learned a lesson in that. And I hope that it sorted him in a way that he never wanted to have that same experience ever again, right? Yeah, that's something else. Okay, you guys, let's grab a card, go into it for a few minutes. I hope everybody's having an amazing night, and I hope that your week is going well. And right, we're in the middle of the week now. We got a couple of days left, and we're moving into the weekend for my life. Right, the weekdays and the weekends just kind of meld into each other, but it is that idea that we love what we're doing, right? Whether we're working or whether we're relaxing or whether we're delving into our own interests or hobbies or sharing with others, that we really do appreciate ourselves in that. I have helped others years, through the years from what happened to me. So I thank God I was able to survive it and overcome it, right? It's in our difficult times that provide the best lessons, right? Lessons that we would prefer not to have, but lessons that come into our lives. And, sometimes it makes us feel better to understand that they came into our lives so that we could provide service for somebody who would in in that moment be able to resolve it for themselves without your experience, right? Without any one of our experiences. Okay, you guys, let's grab a card, go into it for a few minutes, and then call it a night. Oh my goodness, look at that, Tammy. we had this word we had this word yesterday. Are we starting some patterning again? We'll see in the next few days whether this word pops up. If you weren't in my live yesterday, we got this out of 54 powerful words. We got this word yesterday. Happiness. Happiness is when you love what you're doing. And that's what we were just talking about, right? That whatever we're doing, that we're actually getting joy out of it. We're getting um, value out of it for ourselves, that it makes us feel good, that sometimes even in our struggles, even in those things that happen to us that we would prefer not to happen, that they can serve somewheres along the line. And if you're anything like me, it makes you feel better, right? It you still would prefer that it didn't happen, but it makes you happy that in that experience that we had, right? That was maybe not good, that it offered up something for somebody that, right, that appreciates you in the experience that you had. And it alleviates the pain sometimes, right? What I'm doing here online, it's tough sometimes, right? It's tough in a way where I don't appreciate seeing the truth face me, something that I have to accept about myself. And sometimes, and most of the time, I can't just accept it. I have to work on it, right? Because I am that example for others. So, as much as I love what I'm doing, it doesn't mean that it's right popcorn and cotton candy and sprinkles falling from the sky, right? It is work. It is disillusionment sometimes, right? Because you think you're on top of something, right? You think you got it down packed just to recognize that, oh my goodness, there's just another level of it, right? And that can be right? Disheartening in a way. But you work through it, knowing that in the end, everything is going to be okay. And remember what I said in those difficulties, in those things that we overcome, right? In our lives or in our problems, there are gifts in that. And in those gifts, we can find joy, we can find happiness, we can find purpose, right? To smile, to whistle while you work, to sing in the rain. It was the best times, it was the worst of times, right? And that's true. But if you can do that and find happiness, that's everything, right? Just the fact that you saw the light at the end of the tunnel and you just kept your eye on that. You just kept on moving until it opened up. And then you had that opportunity, even if just for the moment, to smile. Good job. Life is worth living, right? Because life is worth living. And lots of people have these experiences and say, I just can't take one more minute of it, right? And they give up on themselves, right? Truly, people give up on themselves and they don't ever get to have a chance to wake up to some of these ideas, right? To release some of these coping mechanisms so that they could actually see what a beautiful world we truly live in, right? And have that opportunity to create the best human being you possibly can, right? And that includes the happiness because it happens when you love what you're doing, right? You love what you're doing. It's beautiful. We had this word 2 days in a row. We'll see in the next couple of days if we pull that card up again. Okay. You still do a great job, Cindy, on your YouTube channel. I think that you do a fantastic job. Keep moving onward and keep moving forward. I love that, Tammy, right? It's a motto of mine. We have to keep moving forward because if we don't keep moving forward, we have zero chance. Zero chance, right? But if we just keep going, even in the baby steps, right? There's purpose in that. There's an opportunity to find happiness in doing that. Okay, you guys. That's my good cheer. I'm gonna come back in, make myself a cup of coffee, and watch my live. We'll see you all tomorrow night. Thank you again. Thank you for sharing, Tammy. Have a great night.